The ACC just released Florida State's schedule for the 2024 season, and I gotta say, it's not actually quite as bad as I thought. I honestly kind of expected the ACC to try to screw us over just a bit, considering the rocky relationship we have with the conference, especially at this point, but either way, let's dive into it. First up, and we've known this one for a while, but we kick off the season in Dublin, Ireland against Georgia Tech on August 24th. A week zero game, technically, against an in-conference opponent. I'm really excited about this one, and I'm actually really hoping to go. It sounds like College Game Day will actually be there, which is a bit ironic to me. I don't know that they're going to be met with the best reaction from a bunch of Florida State fans, likely consuming a good amount of alcohol, but should be a fun one either way. Next up, Florida State returns to Doak Campbell Stadium and plays Boston College. I like this placement here. You wouldn't necessarily love having a tougher matchup after coming back from out of the country. I believe this is one spot that Florida State kind of requested. I'm not too sure how all that works necessarily, but I've heard that Florida State made this request to the conference to have this game scheduled second. Now, Boston College gave us a run for our money last season, but we've kind of already talked about some of the reasoning behind that. A road game in the weather with most of the team having the flu. I expect this time around at Doak Campbell Stadium be much easier for the Noles. Then we get an early bye week right after Boston College. Florida State actually has a total of 3 bye weeks in 2024, which is kind of odd. I don't know that I've ever seen quite that many before, but you get the first one right after BC, and then Memphis comes into town. Yes, the Memphis Tigers, Mike Norvell's old team that he used to coach for what should be a fun matchup, just given that kind of dynamic there. But again, a game the Noles should easily win. September 21st, Florida State plays Cal at home. One of the newest members of the ACC coming over from the Pac-12 that is now no more. The Bears have had a tendency to play good defense, but it should be another game Florida State wins comfortably. We'll do a bit of a more in-depth dive into the schedule and do predictions and all that once we get closer to the season. Of course, we still don't really know fully how all these rosters are going to look, but nonetheless, Florida State versus Cal and Doak should be a fun one. September 28th, Florida State heads to Dallas to play at SMU, the other newest addition to the ACC. They came over along with Cal and Stanford, who Florida State actually doesn't play in 2024. SMU will be a pretty good game, I think. Red Lashley is the head coach there now. You may remember him. He was the offensive coordinator at Miami during that year that Tyler Van Dyke was really good, before falling off a cliff under Mario Cristobal. They had an 11-3 season in 2023, so they're definitely no slouch. This is definitely one I'm looking forward to. Now, October 5th, you get Clemson at home again. DJ Uiagalelei will be wearing garnet and gold and taking on his former team. Now, last time these two teams played in Tallahassee, he was Clemson's quarterback and absolutely shredded the FSU secondary, having one of the better games of his career, if we're being honest. So, hopefully he has a similar kind of game, but does it for the good guys this time. Again, another game dynamic that'll be interesting to watch, coming with probably a lot of smack talk, I'm sure, and another instance where this would probably be a matchup where conference championship hopes are at stake for both teams. You gotta love an in-conference rivalry, and thankful we get them at home again this time. October 12th, you get your second bye week of the year, and this is actually a good spot following Clemson because then you go on a decent, tough 4-game stretch of conference play. You get Duke on a Friday night on October 18th. This one is at Duke. This game won't be as tough in 24 as it was in 23, most likely. Both Riley Leonard and their former head coach, Mike Elko, have moved on to greener pastures, so I suspect Duke will come back to their normal standing. They did, however, just hire Manny Diaz as their head coach, and I think he's actually a really good coach, so maybe that one could get interesting, but nonetheless, another one the Florida State should win. After the Friday game against Duke, you go to Miami and play in Doak South, the always anticipated and deeply hated rival, playing them on October 26th this time, so a little earlier than usual. Last time the Noles went down there was a 45-3 bloodbath, so hopefully that repeats itself as well. Miami did just get Cam Ward to the transfer portal, but with what Mario does to quarterbacks, I'm not really worried there. Of course, it's always a good rivalry game and anything can happen, but also if you take out that fluke play by Kevin Knowles, Florida State wins by 2 scores in 2023, so we'll just have to see how everything kind of shakes out by that time. Now, November 2nd, you come back home and you play North Carolina. It's been a couple years since we played them, and I always like that matchup, so glad to see the Heels back on the schedule. This time, of course, no Drake May, and Matt Brown has never beaten Florida State, so I still suspect a win here. After that, November 9th, you go to Notre Dame, so this is, at least as it all seems right now, this may be the single toughest game on your schedule for 2024. Notre Dame is always a tough team. They always play a tough physical game. They actually got Duke transfer quarterback Riley Leonard, so likely we'll see him again. They had an impressive showing in 2023, so it should be a good matchup there in South Bend. Then you get your third and final bye week towards the end of the season before playing Charleston Southern and the Florida Gators at home to finish the season. Now, I like the bye week there on the 16th even more because Florida actually has a brutal stretch to end their season. Their final 5 games are back-to-back of Georgia, at Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and then having to come to Tallahassee to play the Noles. An absolutely brutal stretch there for the Gators, who just may not have much left in the tank, where Florida State will have had a bye week and a tune-up game against Charleston Southern before hosting. Now, side note, I don't think Billy Napier will see, or at least not finish, the 2025 season coaching at Florida. That 2024 schedule for them is insane. But yeah, overall, not too bad of a schedule. I'm fairly happy with it. You got a bit of a tough run there going Clemson, bye week at Duke, at Miami, then UNC, and then at Notre Dame. It's a tough run. And Florida State will definitely have to be sharp for sure, but not impossible by any means. I mean, you look through the schedule here, and there's no for sure loss. There's no game or grouping where you instantly think that the Noles will stumble. Obviously, could it happen, especially during that conference stretch? Of course. And predicting 12-0 is so hard because anything can happen, but Minor and Florida State do not want to take a step back here. They still want to compete for the ACC championship and the new 12-team playoff. I think the schedule sets up pretty well for that. I think looking at it, 10-2 is your floor. I think if you get to 9-3, you probably had a rough loss somewhere where you shouldn't have, and that would be kind of frustrating, but I could very easily see another 11-12 wins, and at that point, you're easily in contention for the conference and a run at the playoffs. I think this is going to be a pretty fun offseason for Florida State fans. Lots of new faces coming in, and we're going to be waiting for the tour of duty update, spring camp, of course, the spring game, etc. But I like a lot of the new guys coming in, and I think Mike Norvell is building a roster more than capable of dominating the schedule here. But I do want to get your thoughts. What do you think of the schedule overall, and what matchup may give you some concerns? Let me know down in the comments. As always, like, subscribe, and let's talk Noles.